YouTube, what the crap's going on? Era von Karstein here. Yes, the von Karsteins gave me the blood kiss. I am now no longer mortal, but an undead. At least I feel that way after spending, 9 or 10 hours in my office tomb each day at work. But in any case, I can channel that into being a von Karstein. So this is a fun battle I got to play with Indy Pride, and he is going to be playing as the Dark Elves and taking an elite Dark Elf build versus my Vampire Counts army. Now, I am certainly no professional in terms of vampires and multiplayer. Some players are quite scary with them, and honestly, the vampires are looking quite a bit stronger in Immortal Empires. Their infantry took a pretty significant buff with the way that they got increases in leadership and a few other stat lines, so they're looking pretty impressive. Great Guard are downright scary in certain situations, and the Grave Guard with Great Weapon are also very tough. I've brought Vlad and Isabella just for the sake of having some nice theme here. So I've got Isabella as the hero, Vlad as the lord. I figured Vlad would be a little harder to kill. That's why I put him as the lord and then Isabella as the hero. Both of them are rocking some summons and invocation, just basic stuff. I did not bring Wind of Death. And some of you might be thinking, well, Air, if a faction brings elite units against you, you gotta have a spell like that. Yeah, you do. You do. Let's see how it goes, right? So there is a relatively small Dark Elf army, and we'll see whether I can deal with them. I have a front line of zombies. I do have a Blood Knight back here for doing some anti-large work, and I've got a couple of Black Knights and Fellbats for a little bit of extra mobility. It is going to be a tough fight. Indy has some Scourge Runner chariots here, and these things are actually doing better than I remember from range. They have been pretty potent against my bats, and then they took some pot shots at my Black Knights and Blood Knights, forcing me to fall back. So these units are also going to be pretty effective against infantry after they've expended their ammunition, so I like this pick for the most part. Against the Vampire Counts, you can see that Indy here has a couple of Dread Spears. These are pretty decent chaff infantry. He's backing them up with Sisters of Slaughter, who will basically cut apart anything without armor. And then he's also got some Black Guard in the back, which will tank out monsters and do pretty darn well against enemy infantry as well. I mean, when you look at the stats here, stat lines are pretty good except for attack, and honestly that's still not that bad up against Vampire Counts. He's got a Shadow Sorceress for the Pit of Shades, because Pit of Shades is kind of almost an auto pick right now in Immortal Empires. It is really good. It's just good. It's better than Pendulum right now, so I think that you're going to see a lot of people picking. He's also got a Black Dragon, and his lord is Malus Darkblade, who no longer the meme. He, to me, is actually utterly and completely broken. I don't fully understand why. I've been talking to Turin and to Indy and others about what exactly makes him broken, and I think it's the abilities, like as he goes off as Zarkon. There's certain, like these. I think it's these abilities here. I don't 100% know, but it makes him very tough, very tough. We'll get to see him in action. I mean, think about it. He's got to go up against Vlad and Isabella, and those two don't die easy. Right? Dying is not something that they're typically accustomed to. So you better get ready for an interesting fight here. Now, I needed to get in here and fight, but at the same time, I have to be careful not to overblob, because I know he has the Pit of Shades, and it's a great way for him to deal with my Grave Guard, so I have to be very careful. I do have my bats. I can use them to tie up as dragons or to try and chase Scourge Runners, but again, I need to be careful. I've bogged his Sisters of Slaughter down here with zombies. These ladies can kill zombies for absolute days, and not bat an eye about it. So they're going to be in heaven to some respect. But I don't know if any unit can actually effectively trade with zombies, monetarily speaking. And they would have to kill so many zombies. Like a Sister of Slaughter, I think, would have to kill 1,100 zombies in order to pay for itself against zombies. Look at this Pit of Shades here. I actually caught it just a little bit too late, and you can see just the amount of damage it does. This wasn't even a particularly blobbed up unit of Grave Guard. It knocked it down. That's going to be over 75% damage on my Grave Guard. So Pit of Shades is a little bit broken as well. So unless CA fixes it, you should probably be using it, just like Indy did there, because it is brutal. And again, that was not a unit. I mean, that unit was spread out as wide as I could spread it, and I should have moved away from that, but I just didn't catch it in time. It was a nice kill by Indy there. Now, I'm trying to be patient here. I came back here after Scourge Runners with some Black Knights. I decided to try and pin his dragon on the ground, and I was moving my Blood Knights. They're out of position, though. I was trying to get my Blood Knights over to that fight and hit this dragon while it's on the ground. And I'm hoping my Black Knights and Bats can hold it, but Indy is desperately pulling it away, giving it orders after orders after orders to take off. So I'm going to keep the Bats on it, and I'm going to keep chasing it, because I really need that to die. At this point, the Dark Elves are bogged down in all my infantry. I've got multiple summons up. Zarkon is kind of going back and forth here. Occasionally, when he does change forms, he's some weird things that, like, I think it like showed him as Tsarina Catherine or something. I don't know. It's an early build, so there's still bugs in it. So I was laughing about it whenever we were playing the match. But in any case, you can see me still trying to chase the dragon. Even on the ground, the dragon is pretty quick, and he's been difficult for me to catch up with. And he just keeps running away. Here comes another Pit of Shades, and this is going to melt another one of my balls of units here. He's actually going for a Skeleton Warrior and a Zombie. So this one's actually not terrible for me, because a few Sisters died in it as well, which is actually probably all right for me. I'm going to start using my Black Knights for some rear charges. They do anti-infantry specific damage as well. I'm hoping to get a little bit of damage done. You can see that Zarkon had come in and, Malus, Zarkon, whoever he is at the moment, he keeps charging through here. He's barely been touched. He's basically full hit points. I can't seem to do much damage to him. I bring Vlad in. Now remember that Vlad is no longer like the Sigvald-esque type character that he used to be, with really high non-armor piercing damage. He's now lower damage, but mostly armor piercing. Of course, that was changed a while ago in Warhammer 2, but just restating that here. So he does have nice AP capability, and Isabella's no slouch in combat either. She's got a lot of melee defense, so these are two very tough characters that would normally be taking some chunks out of people. And we did get a couple out of him, but I mean, he's mostly going to shrug that off. I've got the Master of Beguilement on him as well, and I'm hoping to get in here and cause some pretty significant damage. Look at his defense, though. It's 60. So it's still hard to get a hit in on this guy. I'm going to bring Vlad over to try and assist. I feel like maybe I've got a chance to try and goon Malus out of this, but remember that Malus, he can also run away on his cold one. He's got speed, and he's bringing in, Indy's bringing in some Blackguard to help out in this fight, and that's honestly just what the doctor ordered here. But even still, look at this, 2-on-1, and I'm doing a little bit of damage, but it's very slow and taking a very long time. And he's dealing some in return, so I'm going to have to extricate myself. I can't fight amongst that Blackguard. I'm using my Black Knights, cleaning up all the infantry I can clean up, but there's still a significant amount of infantry left. My Grave Guard got savaged pretty bad by some spells, and so I only have so many of them, and not many are left. So I'm kind of left in a situation where I'm running short of chaff, which may get pretty challenging to deal with here late in the game. My Blood Knights are still very much alive. I'm trying to be very careful about engaging them. I used my bats earlier to tie that dragon down. They're now gone. I did decide to take a charge at that dragon while I had an opportunity, but I'm going to go ahead and pull back and let the healing take place. I was really just trying to get some pot shots. I really wanted to just drag it away from these fights. I don't want the dragon assisting. I want to sit in here, get as many summons as I can, and just bury the Dark Elves in units. So I'm going to go ahead and charge my Blood Knights here. This is risky. As he gets Pits of Shade, I have to be very... Pits of Shades. Pits of Shades? I don't know. Yeah, like right here, I thought, oh no, it was the breath attack he called in. I thought it was another one, so I tried pulling back, but of course there's a little delay when you pull a unit back. I'm going to do my best to try and heal up these Blood Knights, but that was a nasty hit for me. So it stinks because I have to commit my cavalry, but it also gives him the opportunity to use his magic. I need to get focused on killing his Shadow Sorcerer, but he's keeping the dragon all around the Sorcerer as well, and so I have to be careful. Here with my cavalry, I'm able to put a hit on it. The Sorcerer will probably come back, though. So I know that I have to get rid of it, but at the same time, I have to be careful. I can't let my units get singled out. I saw these Sisters of Slaughter were looking vulnerable. I picked them off real quick as well. That does still leave me with a couple of units. One is very weak, but I still have a couple of units of Blackguard to deal with, plus Malus himself, who is over here up to 114 kills and still over 75% health, despite having gotten gooned by two pretty powerful vampire leaders for a good while. He's still very much kicking. This Sister of Slaughter unit's the one I'm working on now. You can see just how many zombies it's had to chop through. And again, although impressive how many kills it can get, think about it, these kills are almost all zombies. And so in the end, these units just cannot tank their value in zombies. It just won't happen. I'm going to get another summon here. I'm just trying to keep the Blackguard busy chewing on things. I've got to wear them down. I've got to get them exhausted. And, you know, just that's going to be the only chance that I have to win something like this, is to absolutely wear these units out. See the dragon here still flying around. I need to deal with the dragon. I just don't have a lot of ways to deal with the dragon. If I ground Isabella, still going to be fighting into halberds potentially, which is very dangerous for me. Melkoth's miasma here, not what I wanted. I think I had attempted to heal these some, and I still have a few Black Knights, but again, I have to be careful. That Shadow Sorceress is back, and if I get too blobbed up, it's just going to be an instant punishment. Unfortunately for me, I do not have any magic to punish these blobs either. And speaking of magic to punish the blobs, I was kind of thinking about this. What should you bring to potentially use magic against these? Now, I didn't. I was just going for like a summon build here. You can see the perils of such a build. Also, I should have brought Graveguard with Great Weapon. Graveguard with Great Weapon are much more powerful, but they still have the issue of that Pit of Shades and other things potentially wrecking them. So even though they're better against this stuff, you still have the potential to get nuked. So in the end, I think if you're playing as Vampire Counts and you want something reliable to do damage to these elite units, like Blackguard, probably Fate of Buna and Spirit Leech are a decent pick, especially against the Dark Elves. They don't do a lot of healing. And that is just going to be hit points you can drag out of those units. Spirit Leech is good against low model counts, and Fate of Buna is good against high model counts, and should pay back relatively quick. So I'm feeling like that I should have probably brought some Death Magic if I wanted to be a little more serious. Some Death Magic and some Graveguard with Great Weapons could probably help equalize this fight a little bit better. Death Magic also has some nice debuffs to it. Can be handy. You also have Purple Sun, if you really got serious about it. I do have a number of units here left. I mean, Vlad is still going to be a tank in this fight. And you're seeing him. I mean, he is absolutely beastly. He's managed to get Malus up to his healing cap here. And you can see a Pit of Shades here. As soon as this is why I hadn't committed my Blood Knights, and I knew Indy was waiting for this. So the minute that I have to commit my Blood Knights, he just deletes them. The Pit of Shades. So this is what I was talking about, the difficulty. One way you could counter that Pit of Shades too, and it wouldn't be brilliant, is that you could just rely on other units to do your killing there. So maybe like Bargulfs or something like that instead of the Blood Knights. They wouldn't be specifically anti-large, but I think they actually cost a little bit less. And they're pretty good at gooning things. Now, I decided to take Isabella after the dragon. I had Master of Beguilement, and I have to fight. Like, there's nowhere else to go. I'm out of other units. You can see here that Vlad just took a big nasty hit off Malus there. And so that's actually got him now close to his healing cap. And despite a really stellar performance, all of a sudden here in this fight, Vlad just starts evaporating. He's surrounded by some really tough infantry, and Malus just goes off, and look, he transforms and is back at full health again, which is great. I think that when they transform, you know, your health starts to drop, but I think he can transform back out of it, and it ends up helping him just keep extending his life, just part of the reason why he's obscenely powerful right now. And so I am going to end up losing this because I just could not take down Malus, whether he's in his Zarkon form or not. So yeah, just very little that I could do to stop him at the moment. So I go ahead and let Isabella, look at this, she tanked a Black Dragon. I'm not entirely sure how she pulled this off. Like, the stats are a little bit strange here. It may just be her really high defense. Other stuff kicking in here, maybe good RNG or something, but yeah, she tanks a Black Dragon. Now, she has no prayer of defeating all the rest of this stuff in melee, but still an impressive performance on her part. I'm going to go ahead and chase this off for a moment. And then I'm going to come back. I knew it would come straight back from routing, but at this point, you know, it was clear I wasn't going to win the battle, so there was no point in prolonging this for overly long. So there's the transformation. And, of course, Isabella is not going to be able to take down Malus here as well. Or Zarkon, I guess, in his current form. So it's just not going to work out. Pretty epic fight in the end. I think that the elite builds are still going to be popular for some against the Vampire Counts, but the Vampire Counts are not totally susceptible to these builds. They can beat them. I took this build here because I don't typically go in expecting people to bring a lot of elites, and people say, well, Air, you were the Vampire Counts. Of course they could bring a lot of elites. Yeah, I probably should have considered a little deeper here, but honestly, I figured that I would have enough between Vlad, Isabella, all the summons and everything to be able to kind of work my way through it. But, again, with hindsight being perfect, if I were to re-choose a few things, I don't think that I ended up getting really any value out of these skeleton warriors. I could take the money from them to convert these Graveguard into the Great Weapon variants, who would have been better. But the thing is that the Great Weapon variant up against, say, like the Sisters of Slaughter is actually kind of a waste. They would have had to have specifically gone into the like the Blackguard and the other units to get their value out. So ultimately, in the end, it might have just been better to have Death Magic, right? To come in this thing with Death Magic, use the Spirit Leech, use the Fate of Buna. I could have been ticking away at Malus's hit points, and then Fate of Buna is still brutal against these elite units with a lot of models. It can be very effective. Would have been a good way for me to drag them down. Ultimately, the Dragon was not near as big of a threat as I thought it was. If I would have known that Isabella had the capability to pummel it like that, I would have just used the bats and her at the beginning to go for it. I think the main reason why I couldn't, too, is because there was support fire coming in from the Scourge Runner chariots, and they certainly could have helped sway that fight with their fire in there. But let's take a look at the stats here. Pretty good value from Vlad, considering the brutal fight that he was in the whole time. Very good value from Isabella. She put on just an impressive performance there. Nothing with the Blood Knights, unfortunately, and very little value off my Graveguard. I'm not even sure either one paid for itself, so it ended up being a rough fight for them. And of course, nothing else really with my vampires would I have expected to get too much value. On the other hand, look at that, Malus, 4,000. He still wasn't anywhere near dead. Like, this guy could have kept going for a long time. He definitely needs some tweaks. However, that said, Indie Pride did a very nice job with the Shadow Source. If you look at the Pit of Shades, I mean, dang, 2092 value. It's pretty difficult to avoid, too. Pit of Shades is a really nice spell. It can be avoided, but it can be difficult unless you see it right away. The Dragon got a little more value than I expected or hoped for, but again, Isabella was able to put it down. Look at all the kills on these Blackguard. Now, this one got some value here. Must have been cutting through. I think this is the one that was in the big fight with... maybe it was the one on the opposite flank. I don't remember. It obviously got into something expensive. This was the one that was the most alive, so it must not have taken too much of a chunk out of Vlad. I think this was the one that came off my right flank. Got a hold of something to get that value. It could have been a Graveguard unit because they wouldn't have been particularly well suited for that. You can definitely tell the Sisters of Slaughter, like this one at least, mostly cut through zombies and skeletons, whereas this one obviously got a hold of something a little more expensive than that. Look at this, 393 kills on a Dread Spear. Yeah, that's a lot of zombies. And honestly, that's pretty impressive to see a Dread Spear take down that many zombies. So a nice performance out of that unit. But look at the value here, 297. That's why you almost can't win against zombies. And then there's the Scourge Runner chariots. But appreciate Indie Pride playing the battle with me. It was, in some ways it was a close fight. In other ways it wasn't, because Malus was still alive there. Again, those were the changes I think I could make. You all tell me what you think. Get down in the chat. How do you like to take on the elite builds as the vampire counts? Now remember, Wind of Death has been significantly nerfed. I went out and tested it myself against these same Dark Elf units. It is not good. So Wind of Death is not the answer. Don't come to me talking about Wind of Death. It is not the same Wind of Death at the moment that it used to be. Now, will it stay that way? I don't know. I don't know what CA is going to do ultimately, but I think the vampires also have access to Shadow. And maybe that's the ticket. Instead of bringing Isabella, maybe you just bring one of the vampire casters, whatever mount you want to, and you bring Pit of Shades and just return the favor to the Dark Elves, right? And that would get rid of those Blackguard very quickly. So I think Pit of Shades or Fate of Buna, one of the two, would be a solid way to go. You all tell me what you think. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I'll see you soon with some more action in Total War Warhammer 3.